Josh Walking is a film now playing in theaters, and this came out a few weeks ago, I believe. Have not been able to catch it because my theaters were not open, but they just recently opened up, so I decided to go catch it. And this is from the director of Go and Live Tai Repeat, Doug Liman. And this movie is based on a book, I believe, of the same name. I haven't read this book, so I couldn't tell you. So I'm giving you a fresh perspective from someone who's not read the book. I don't think me reading the book would have changed how much this film would have been, because this film is pretty bad. This film went through many different writer changes and delays. In fact, this film was so bad that it delayed from January to January. Now, if you don't know what the big deal about a film delaying from January to January is, January is a month where they release bad movies. Terrible movies. And this film does fall into that camp. They knew this film was going to be a flop, so they just kind of put it out. They couldn't hold this film for any longer. But this film stars Tom Holland, who, is most known for playing Spider-Man, who I think people really only know him from Spider-Man, but the thing about Tom Holland is he's actually a pretty decent actor. He's better at being an actual actor than he is in the Spider-Man movies, but teach their own. And he is and Daisy Ridley is also in this movie. From I guess most people know her from Star Wars, and she's not really been in much else besides that. But this film is very bad. The concept of this movie is we have a dystopian world, and there are no women, and everyone can hear each other's thoughts through like a stream of like visuals. All the men can, anyways, and there's no women. And then Daisy Ridley's character crash lands on Earth. As far as we know, it's Earth, I guess. I don't remember they said it. I'm pretty dead sure it's Earth, but this film is very confusing, so I don't know. But she crash lands, and that's kind of how our story begins. It's kind of a mystery of what's going on. Why is this woman here? Why are there no women here? You don't really know. Everything in this movie is very bad. First of all, the thoughts part of this movie. I think this movie needed a better visual director who would be able to deliver these things, like the idea of only being able to see things through visuals and things like that. With a better director, this could have been an amazing idea and concept for a movie. Now, I'm sure it's great in the book. I could see this concept working a lot better in a book. But in a movie, it could work too if they had a really good visual director, which this film does not have. Doug Liman directed a couple pretty good movies. This one's goes really good. This one's alright. I don't like it as much as most people do. But he's not known for visual style and flair and all that. And so, being able to hear these characters' thoughts needed someone who could really direct that in a really pretty sense and make something really cool and deliver it in an interesting way. But it doesn't have that. And also the thoughts sometimes also should have been used to deliver more comedy. Now there is comedy in this movie, because he doesn't know how to react to seeing this girl, but there needed to be more of it. And the comedy in this movie, it was kind of split with the audience in the theater. Some laughed at the comedy, and then majority didn't, because it was so awkwardly placed within the movie that I don't think people knew that they were supposed to be laughing. I could tell it was comedy, but I didn't laugh because it was so awkwardly put in there. And it's like, there should have been more of it. Also, another problem with this movie is the world. You're kind of just thrown into things throughout most of this movie, and they do explain some stuff, but the stuff they do explain is not well explained or well explored. So you're like, who's that character? What's the relationship to this character? Why is he here? What's going on? I didn't get that from that scene. But, it just doesn't work. It's just a terrible movie. I would say the performances in this movie are fine. I think the dialogue has a huge issue with this movie because you're seeing characters' thoughts and stuff. And I think some of the thoughts are like, okay, that's a normal thought that somebody would have. But then there's some points in the movie where I'm like, I don't get why you're saying this in your head and not saying this out loud. Because you could say this out loud and it would make no difference. But it's like stuff like that. It's just an awkward, very clunky mess of a movie with so many interesting ideas that the film not only does nothing with, but doesn't know how to present them in a way that is interesting. I'm sure if I read you the premise to this movie, you'd be like, that concept sounds really interesting. I bet that could be an interesting movie or book. You can let me know how I'm a jerk or I'm a terrible critic because I've never read the book or whatever, but doesn't change the fact that at the end of the day, this film was bad. Whether it followed the book correctly or not, it's not a well done, put together movie. It's a mess of a movie. It's confusing. It was hard to follow. It was boring. It was poorly paced. No one in the theater was really that engaged with this movie for the most part. And yeah, it was just meh. So I'm giving this movie a 2 out of 10. It is pretty bad. First movie I've seen this month. And it's a 2 out of 10.